His Christmas outfit.
We are live. Okay, we're live.
All right. I'm going to call this meeting of the Facilities Committee and Safety Committee meeting to order. This meeting is being held by notice of audio-video conference of Facility and Safety Committee meeting as authorized by I think the Governor's office, right?
Correct.
And so we will have our first, everybody, notice was posted as required by the statutes. So the first item of business is Mr. Tapia to update us on the traffic study by the City of Harlingen on 13th Street and the related safety improvements.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Can you all hear me and can you see the presentation?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Damn,
Well, the
new
first
screen.
item I want to talk about was a traffic study that was done by the City of Harlingen on 13th Street, right in front of Harlingen High School. City's gotten some complaints over the years of congestion, a lot of traffic, some accidents, and last year I believe there was a student that was hit by a car, not seriously injured, but there was a complaint of somebody hitting a child as they were crossing the street. So the city took it upon themselves to do a traffic study, and it's a pretty lengthy report. It's about 16, 17 pages, just too much to share with you and on this presentation, but I'll give you the cover page, and then I'll tell you this study was done by Hansen Engineering, traffic engineers. And this study here, the first part of the report talks a lot about identifying the existing conditions, describing the project, lighting conditions at day and night, the traffic signs, speed counts, the amount of volume of traffic, pedestrian and vehicular, speed zones and traffic flows and frequencies and all that kind of data that they collected, and then did an analysis on all the data that they had. And they came up with 5 recommendations. If you can follow my cursor there, this is 13th Street, and this is Marshall. It's the corner of the high school. And off to the right, there's another road. I think, I forget the name of it, but it's offset from Marshall. It's not exactly lined up, but right now we have a crosswalk up here on top in the middle of the block by that parking lot, and there's another crosswalk a little bit away from that intersection. And the report, any traffic city engineer and traffic engineer is going to tell you, you never put crosswalks unless they're at street intersections, or you can cause a lot of safety issues. So that's what they're identifying, this existing crosswalk and this one. And I'll go through the report. There are 5 findings to correct and improve the safety conditions there. I'll start with the first one, 5.1, is consolidating crosswalks. So basically what this is saying is those 2 crosswalks we have are not at intersections. Get rid of them both and create a new one at the intersection. That was a pretty simple recommendation. The second recommendation, 5.2, was for rapid rectangular flashing beacons. And that's basically kind of like a street sign, but with flashing beacons that would just blink right, left, right, left, right, left. And they recommend we get 2 of those on each side of the street so that when those are on, it's letting the drivers know that there's potentially somebody crossing the road. 5.3 is a recommendation for a pedestrian refuge island. You can see there from the picture that as you cross one lane, you get into an island that's protected by curb and gutters and signs, and then you can wait there until you can cross over to the other half of the street. This one is a little more costly, and it also creates an issue for us that's our bus turn lane, and so that would cause problems with our buses. 5.4 is to install raised crosswalks or speed bumps, as indicated by these illustrations. They're pretty wide, so that you don't have a big bump. It's a kind of a gradual up and down, and striped, and it does get drivers' attention and slows everyone down. And somebody's walking, it encourages you to yield or slow down while people are crossing. These are also pretty costly. And the 5th recommendation is to do what they call a road diet. On the left illustration, you see 4 lanes with a center turn, and the recommendation would be to go to a 2-lane and a center turn and make the other lanes just shoulders. And usually when you have shoulders, people usually like to park there. So we weren't too crazy about that. We met with the principal, the assistant principals from Mr. Hadamek and Ms. Bauer. We met with Danny Castillo, our emergency management director, myself. Went over all these recommendations, and they were concerned with the road diet. Just with 2 lanes, it's going to back up traffic further than 4 lanes. So that was and it's just going to slow everything down and make the whole pickup and drop off time longer, because you're having longer lines instead of, 4 lanes, you'll have to go down to 2 lanes. So you create a bottleneck type effect. So in summary, here was a cost analysis of the city for the crosswalks. It was just $1,000, because that's basically paint work. And the city took this to their city commission. The city engineer recommended the crosswalks and the flashing beacons. The crosswalks at $1,000 and the beacons for 2 of them for $15,000. And the city they did a agenda item on city commission meeting, and they approved to accept these 2 recommendations, and they're going to pay 100% of these 2 improvements.
Right.
The crosswalks has actually already been done. The work has been done. They've ordered the materials for the flashing beacons. The other 3 will not be done by the city, but if we want to look into these in the future, I'm sure we'd probably wind up paying a substantial, if not 100% of the cost, but I'm not sure if they're needed right now, and school administration wasn't too crazy about those ideas either. So this is the report that came forth. This is a new crosswalk that was put right at the intersection of Marshall and 13th Street. There you can see the cardinal sign there, and that makes it safer. It already has a ramp and sidewalk. You can see it there on that intersecting street, crossing over. And where the old crosswalk was over here away from the intersection, there was a sidewalk. That sidewalk with a ramp would encourage people to walk there. Because they limited this crosswalk, the painting, they took out the sidewalk and they put a new curb and gutter. You can see the new poured piece there, because they don't want people walking there. And that's where they tore out the sidewalk and the ramp. They got a new curb here, and they erased the lines that were there before. So they don't want people walking there. And this is the other crosswalk over towards where the buses come out on the opposite side of the campus. They blacked it out. They don't want people walking here either. They want everyone to go to the intersection, pretty much where that white car is over there. That's where that new crosswalk is, by the corner. So that's where we are in this study. I'll open it up for any questions.
Oscar, would you forward it real slow? I want to catch one particular picture, please. Okay, right there. Now, so on the other side, going from where the little red truck is, in other words, if you cross this on this crosswalk, and then if you made an immediate left, is there any reason to have a crosswalk there too? It looks like there is one.
Crosswalk that exists right here. You can see the lines. They're a little bit faded, but they are there, and you can cross. There are sidewalks on this side of.
Will we repaint those to make it more?
Cross over, and you can see a person here in a bike that's going to go right through that crosswalk.
Will we be repainting those, or?
No, the city did the work. We can ask them to repaint them. We're not allowed to do work on city streets. They would have to do it. But we can ask them.
They look pretty faded. That's the only reason I.
Yeah, they are a little faded.
Yeah, Oscar, and to Greg's point, they look faded, and if you go to the other side, the ones that they took off the paint, you can still see where the ones that they took off the paint.
Yeah, I'll show you here in a minute, but this is the one Greg's talking about.
Yeah.
They're still there, but they're a little faded. But these are the ones they blacked out with.
They blacked out, but it still looks like it's a walk area. It just looks faded.
Yeah, they have it's like kind of like a machine. It's a scraper. They go over it, and it kind of scrapes off the top layer,
Sands it
all the way
down.
down to the asphalt. And you will, but with time, it'll fade in. It's not actually paint. It's kind of like they erased it with a machine.
Yeah.
Took out a little bit of the asphalt. And that's about as good as they can get it.
Yeah, the only other thing you could do is just put a barrier there, just a couple boards, in other words, some 4x4s and then cross pieces. That way you just eliminate it for sure.
Yeah.
Could it-
Cars, as traffic goes by, with time, I've seen these before, they start fading away even more.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's comforting because it does look like someone could say, I thought it was just faded.
Yeah.
Right, and that's why they eliminated that little
Sidewalk.
walkway with the ramp, and they took all this out, and they poured the curb to let people know this is not a crossing area anymore.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I'd appreciate if you could ask them about repainting that one deal. It's, I think it'd be real, I think it's used pretty frequently, and,
Yeah, it's this one right here.
yeah, that would be nice if they could
Okay.
restripe it for us.
They actually should have done it when they did the other one.
Yeah, they should have.
Anyway,
They did it over the Thanksgiving break, so when I came back Monday morning, I went over there,
Hey, you got a, map, right?
Yes, we do.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
no, I think somebody was asking about a map.
No question, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Jerry, you're muted, Jerry.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Right there, Oscar, and down a little bit, who owns that property? Across the
This property?
street? Yes.
Julio, do we own this part here or just on the other side of the street?
No, we own
No, we do. We own.
I know we own this part.
That's what
Yeah,
I
we own
thought.
all that part.
Students used to park there. That was, as Greg remembers well. But students used to park
And skip.
along there. Is that simply vacant land now?
We didn't have to stay, no campus restrictions.
Yes. Yeah,
So
we're not
nobody-
using it for anything. We're not using it for anything.
Okay. Thank you.
I think it's an underground canal that was buried years ago,
Yep, that's correct.
It's all this property.
so. All right.
Okay, so we'll keep you posted. When they put up the flashing beacon lights, we'll take some pictures and present it at the next meeting.
Thank you, Oscar.
Thank you.
So the next item is the presentation of the 2019-2020 school year electricity consumption report. Mr. Tapia, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Powers. On this report here, we did the two-year study of the 2018-19 school year compared to the 2019-2020. And this is from September through August of 2020. So it's last year's school year all the way through the summer. And of course, we had some very interesting things happen this past year. Historically, you can see the red line. We start in September. This is the KWH, the usage. And as the hot weather, as it starts cooling down, our rates do come down a little bit. And into December, January, we don't have really cold weather, or our heaters would be on and you'd actually see it go up, not down. But it kind of cools down and you can see our trends. February, a little bit of a few little couple of cold fronts, maybe some more heaters there. March goes down and we have the spring break, so you take 1 week off that we shut things down. And then starts warming up in April, May, and then in summer, we didn't have June. We had the July summer school. I think June was only 1 week for a few programs, and then July, we started the, I forget what that program's called, the Jumpstart.
Jumpstart.
And you can see how, and then it starts getting hot, and that's a trend that we normally see. This past year, 1920, it followed a very similar pattern until we got to March. That's when the COVID hit, and because we sent everybody home, you can see our trend went way down. And that's because we didn't shut off the air conditioning, because we still had, administration was there, we had custodians during the day, still cleaning, so we still ran the AC. It's just that when you don't have a lot of people, you don't have the demand, so it doesn't run as much. And a lot of the room lights are off, things like that, so it did save quite a bit of usage. And then May into June, July, summer months went up just a little bit. But overall, the consumption went down about 5%.
So we didn't shut down any facilities during that period? I mean, like knock off a wing or the gyms, or everything was running as it normally does?
Yeah, in areas that weren't being used, we did a setback. Normally our set point is 74 degrees. We would do like a 78, 79 setback. And only when it started getting warm into the 80s would it turn on again, because we still had staff there. So we were able to, and then when the teachers came back, No, teachers didn't come back to the fall, till summer, right? Some summer programs?
Yep. But we did have
Yeah.
some summer programs face-to-face at some of the
Right,
campuses.
so it went up a little bit. And so we would, if they'd call complaining, we'd lower it a little bit more. But for the most part, it's still a big trend down.
Wow.
On the actual money, on the actual payments on money, that was KWH, that's basically in water, let's say you're measuring gallons, here's the money paid. You can see again, the previous years, and then here, the money went way down, so at 8% savings. So we saved about $240,000 on money.
Man, that's an elevator.
So between these 2 years here, almost $300,000, well, 200 and,
You know where?
I didn't do the math. 200, oh, there it is. 280, didn't have my glasses on. $283,000 lower than the previous year. So that was money saved from the electricity. On the next chart, I told Joel Cruz, our energy manager, I want to see trends a little bit further back. We did the past 9 years. And this is a really, really good chart to show you what we've been doing here in our district. In 2011, we had 2.5 million square feet of air-conditioned space. Because of the bond and TRE, we started adding some new buildings, some new schools. Our square footage kept going up. We're at a little over 3 million square feet today. The consumption, the KWH, was in a 40,000 with the new buildings that went up, 42, 45,000, 43,000. And then Julio and his staff work on getting some better bids, on better rates on the kilowatt cent bids. And you can see our costs started going down. The consumption kind of stayed the same, although our square footage went up by half a million square feet. Our consumption stayed pretty consistent at around 42,000, but our cost also 3.8 back in 2011, we're down to 3.3. Of course, this past year we saved 243,000 that we normally don't save, but that would still put us around 3.6 million. So we've actually have been able to keep our costs below the past several years, although we've added 500,000 square feet of space. Our kilowatt hour per square foot has gone from $16 all the way down to around $13, 13 kilowatt hours per square foot. And our cost has gone from $1.50 plus to $1.10. And that's something I noticed when I got here 10 years ago, the district I was at before, our high schools over there were running about $1.10, $1.20. And here they're running, the high schools alone were close to $2 a square foot. And just old equipment, lack of controls, old controls. So being at $1.10 overall is a really, really good rate to be at, a cost per square foot. And then couple that with the electrical rates that we have now with the procurement bids that Julio has been able to get, contracts. And the one we have now, Julio, how many years do we have in it?
We still have another 6 or 7 years on it. You know, we did a long-term agreement with the last one that we got. We got pretty good rates.
How many cents are we at?
You know, off the top of my head, about 4 cents per
4,
kilowatt hour.
4.5 cents,
Yeah.
which is really, really good. So it's helped our overall consumption, and we've saved the district quite a bit of money over the past 9 years.
And we also did, Oscar, a lot of retrofits, you know, energy upgrades, you know, to different HVAC systems and new lighting fixtures as well.
Yes, we did that over the years with the BOMB program. This is the same thing, just instead of the line graph, it's a bar graph. You can see the increase of square footage, but the decrease of kilowatt hour usage and decrease in cost the past 3 years. So quite a bit of savings there. When you look at each school, and we did 3 years back, you can see the high school came down, but about 3 years ago, we installed some new air conditioning equipment on wings 1 through 8, a whole bunch of units inside the rooms, new equipment with controls. At Harlingen South, 2 years ago, we did the big fresh air intake units, and this past year, we did the new energy controls. So that's why you see a big dip here on South because of the equipment upgrades we've done, and we did some in the hallways. We also did LED lighting. So the improvements, although you spend some money, really do help bring down your consumption. Other schools kind of stayed steady. Kano here is very important to note, a big drop, but that's because of the past several years with all the air conditioning problems we had there, they complain and we'd have to leave it on longer, sometimes 24/7, sometimes weekends, because until we got this problem finally under control, you can see this past year, it went down quite a bit at Kano. So we finally have it on a normal schedule, off in the weekends with a setback point of 80. So that's why you saw a decrease at Kano. You can see here also, Vela went way up when everything else is going down. Well, this past year, Vela had a really, really bad chiller system. It was old, it wasn't working anymore, we just couldn't repair it anymore. And so we replaced this chiller back in October, a couple months ago. So this next year, you're gonna see that way down with a brand new chiller system. So we try to keep the equipment as long as we can, but once it starts being inefficient, it's not working right, your consumption and usage will go up because of all the complaints. And you leave it off in the weekends, Monday morning, it takes a long time to cool it if it's not working right, and so we're running it weekends too. So that's why you see Vela as an anomaly there. And everything else kind of stayed pretty steady. Some schools had a lot of programs and after school, so some went pretty even or a little bit up. But for the most part, overall, very good history here on the usage. And it's the same thing on the money, very similar trends on the expenses.
Oscar, what's the lifespan of these chillers? Because Vela's not that old, is it?
Well,
Historically, the chillers used to last about 20 to 25 years.
it's almost 50.
The way they're making them now, they're lasting about 15, 16 years.
And what's the cost of one of those things?
Vela, we just replaced, it was about 330,000, Julio. Do you remember? It was a couple of months ago. A little over 300,000.
Yeah, a little bit around 300,000.
Wow.
So that's the historical
Use that.
usage for the past 2 years. Any questions?
Okay.
Now we'll move on to the TRE report.
Yeah.
Treasure Hills, of course, this is a new 2-story wing that we did, and they're using this back drive here around the new chiller, and the staff is parking in the Caliche parking lot we did for them here. And right now we're working on the administration building, which is phase 2, attached to this old wing. And the old library, the courtyard, we're enclosing it and making some GT rooms, computer rooms around the library and redesigned library space. And I'll go straight to the pictures. This was the existing drive we had in front of the kitchen. We extended this all the way down to here, so we have a lot more stacking for pickup for parents, and we have more parking with some handicap spaces. This whole area is that old courtyard in the library. We're going to enclose it. They already did the fill. They dug out 4 feet. They put in new select fill in. That's not clay, clayish type soil was all taken out. And then over here, the big parking lot, they're starting to work on some of the caliche. They've done all the underground storm drains and electrical conduits for the lights and sprinkler systems and all that. And that's what it's starting to look like. And they'll probably start paving here in the next week or 2 in some of the sections in the big parking lot. And once they finish that, when we come back from the holidays, I'm sure we can start letting the staff use it. But we want to put up the big electrical poles first so that they're not the cars are not in the way of the construction and the cranes.
Oscar, can you go back to
Where the new building pad's going to be. This is a trench work for the new concrete beams that'll be in that infill area where the old library, the old courtyard by the library is all going to be filled in with concrete, and they're doing the trenches for the beams. Interior work on the new office building. This is a wing that was demolished and is having work done inside, and the addition will be right here to it. And just some work inside the wing that'll be part of the administration building. That's where we are in Treasure Hills. Any questions on the Treasure Hills Phase 2?
Go back to your first picture there, the parking, the drive-through parking, please. Right there. Yeah, right there. So where's the new entrance to the school on this photo?
The old entrance?
The new entrance, where's it going to be?
This was the entrance and exit before,
But I mean into the building, not the parking, but the building. Like the office, where's the office?
Temporarily, the principal is going to be right here in this area. It's an old fifth grade wing that was remodeled temporarily to have Mr. Ingram and some of his staff. And then the other entrance is on the two-story wing on the opposite side of the campus.
But when it's finished, where's the entrance going to be? The whole
Oh, when it's
project?
finished,
Yes,
it's going to be, when they do this addition right here, the
Yeah.
entrance is going to be right here.
okay. The reason I was asking, I noticed your handicap parking spots were on the very end, and I thought that they should probably be the closest to the entrance to the school, so.
There'll be some new handicap parking spaces
In
here at the
here?
front.
I see, okay,
Since it's separate parking, they make you do some there too.
I see, okay.
And
Thank
then once
you.
this addition is done here, there'll be a connecting canopy from the new wing all the way to the new wing,
Okay,
right here. There'll be a new canopy,
all right. Okay, thank you.
which is shown right here. There'll be a canopy right on, this will be the entry right here, and there'll be some handicap parking spaces right here at the entry,
Okay.
the main entry. Any questions? If not, we'll move on to the Vernon World Language Academy Phase 2. The only thing we were waiting for there was a tree, and you can see it was planted. And it's pretty tall, and they pruned it pretty well because it'll grow faster sideways than it will tall, so they picked a really tall, and it's got a pretty good caliper on the trunk. It's about 12 inches. So we're happy with the tree that was put in.
We had a new construction manager, Mr. Powers, who was monitoring all the work out there.
Es poquito seco allá.
Except Mr. Powers was forgetting to put on his hard hat.
Yeah. So Jerry, don't worry, he's taking care of Vernon, don't you worry.
You know, we could use that 300,000 savings to redo that old library. Julio, what do you think? But,
He's muted,
put those wooden floors back in, those tall ceilings, oh, man. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead. Vernon?
Go ahead.
Moving on to the next project, we have a grant that we got past year under the COPS grant for some safety improvements, and we submitted an application to redo the school entry vestibules for Dishman, Rodriguez, and Wilson, because they're the outer schools, and it's a little bit more longer response on first responders to get there. So we're doing the entry vestibules, which are very protected with it's a class 5 or class 4. It's it's bullet resistant type lobby where the glass and the walls and everything, the hardware, the doors. If somebody, this is all because of the shootings that we used to have years ago. Of course, the COVID has kind of made us forget about school shootings, but prior to the COVID, it was still a very big deal. And I'm sure we'll continue in the future to have those kind of issues. So our vestibules will be designed where somebody gets is allowed in the entry vestibule, and then there's another entry they'll have to be approved by the receptionist to push a button to let them into the office or enter into the rest of the school. We have some schools that you can just walk in and start walking throughout the campus, and this design here will stop you. There'll be a barrier, and you'll have to be allowed to go in. So you can't go in without permission. Gomez Mendez Science Architect helped us. We had a budget of $300,000 for the 3 schools. We had bids today, and we had 4 bidders, ranging from $278,000 from Spalglass up to $316,000 from G&G Construction, and Peacock at $357,000. So we're going to rank them Friday morning, and if everything works out fine, we're going to put an agenda item for next Tuesday's board meeting to award this contract to the highest ranked proposer. So we're moving forward on this project. Any questions on that project?
I have a question, please.
Demonstrate.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's just wonderful, this concept of working on the entry vestibules, and I'm wondering, do we have any plans to be sure that we consider that on every campus? I know campuses are all uniquely constructed, design is different, but if it's safe and good for one, it would be safe and good for the other. It would seem to me, even though I do understand the concept of these are further away, I still think that if it's worth doing on some because it's a safety issue, that we might really want to have some kind of a rollout plan for all of the schools.
Yes, Ms. Fleury, and we discussed that, and this is, we're working with our safety committee that we have. Of course, Dr. Noyola and Danny Castillo are very involved. But we felt that these 3 projects that we submitted were important to kind of seed money to get 3 of them going and see how it works and learn from it and come up with some design options. And once we finish these, we propose to do a master plan study of all our schools with estimated budgets, so we can determine how much money do we need to do all the schools, or we can phase it out over the next few years on TRE funds, or we can continue to apply for grants that may become available. But at least we'll have that master plan in hand. So that'll be the next step. You are muted, Ms. Fleury.
It keeps, I was unmuted and then, anyway, I think that would really give some comfort to the community. It would to me. And I appreciate that. I like the master plan concept. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next project, of course, is the big one, the early college high school UTRGV campus. I'll just go straight to the pictures, tell you the whole story. All the slabs have been poured. The steel structure is going up, and they're starting to put some what they call dense sheathing around the building, so they can protect it from rain and the elements. They're doing the metal trusses up on top of that big 3-story space, which is the commons area. In the back, you see the 2-story classroom wings. And the front entry is the administration. Just another view and all the materials on site. And the weather's been very good as far as getting up out of the ground. Usually when you have a lot of rain, you take a long time getting out of the ground with the slabs and the piers, but we had good weather, so they made good progress. Inside, they're starting to hang ductwork, there's sprinkler systems, electrical conduits, metal studs for the walls. So they're progressing quite well. Here's some of the electrical conduit and the sprinkler systems they're putting in. The metal deck up on top because they're going to pour concrete for the 2nd floor. And just some steel work at the entry. This is that canopy, cantilevered canopy that's going to be at the main front of the building that you see here. So again, some more steel deck on the 2nd floor. And this is where in the 2nd floor, there's going to be an elevator shaft. So Victor, who took the picture, was standing there, took a picture straight down into the commons area. And that blue area, they're already preparing it for a concrete pour. That's the raised slab. It's about 20 inches high. That's right at that's part of the library. And behind it's the library. To the right, it's all part of the library area. But that's also going to be used as a stage, as a speaking area for VIPs or presentations that we have. That'll be addressing the entire commons area, the big open space. And over where this piece of equipment is where the learning stair will go up towards the lecture hall. And people can sit there too and watch any presentations that may be going on. So that's where we are in early college. Any questions? If not, we'll move on to the Transition Academy. This one also is the wood. This is a wood structure, wood frame structure, and it's already it had the plywood reinforcement on the outside, and it's covered with a Tyvek material, which is a weatherproofing for moisture protection for the building. And then on top of that, they'll start the brick facade. Just another close-up look of that building. And in the interior, you can see it's all wood construction. You can see the wood trusses, the wood walls. They're starting to sheetrock. You can start sheetrocking on one side while you do your electrical, your plumbing, call for your inspections. And once the inspection's approved, then you can enclose the entire walls with sheetrock. So they're getting close to that phase. And that's just the breezeway outside with the big outdoor classroom. These are 2 smaller classrooms, and then you had the kitchen inside, the residence inside, which will be the imitation house, the residential part. So that's where we are on the structure, on the Transition Academy. Are there any questions? The next project we have, that's, we're finalizing the drawings, and we actually already advertised it this Sunday. It came out. Gutierrez, we have the phase 2, and here we're doing a new metal chiller screen where the chiller yard is. It's got a block wall up about 9 feet, and then you can see about half of the chiller sticking up. So we're going to put a screen wall higher on top of the block wall to screen that so it's not seen from the street. We're going to put a new outdoor classroom for the Science Academy, robotics areas, painting some of the roof metal trim and doing some outdoor sculpture work. And these are some renderings. This is the chiller yard where it has that wall and the additional screen that'll cover it. And here's an outdoor classroom that'll be for the Science Academy that will be built right in the back outside the classroom wing. So this one's advertising for bids, and we hope to award it in the January board meeting when we come back after the holiday break. Any questions on this project? A little ahead of myself. Any questions on this project?
Arts and Sciences.
If not, the next presentation are the marquees. I know we already finished the pack and we've showed pictures of it, but we also had Zavala, Vernon, Gutierrez, and South that had marquees. We've already put up all the footings, foundations with the posts, and so we're just waiting for the actual sign. And we're doing the design on the colors, the logos. There's the one at Zavala. For the signs, there's the one for Vernon. That's what'll go right at the intersection. And we're going over the style and the letters of the name of the metal panel and the color of the column. We just need to get the right people to approve these logos and letters, fonts, and sizes. I think this one, the Gutierrez Middle School, is a lot smaller than Arts and Sciences, so we may have to either reverse that or make a little change so that the Gutierrez Middle School letters are a little bigger. So we're trying to finalize that. And this color is a little light on the green. We might go a little darker. So we're trying to finalize that design and get it made. Over at South, this is the final design. It's got a hawk logo with the school names, equal size letters, Harlingen High School South. Here's a video screen, and then on the column you'll have hawks, and it'll be identical on both sides. This one's already approved and it's being made. And then the World Language Academy, we're pretty close to it, but I think it's hard to see Vernon Middle School, so we may make a little change on the letter size. And we'll probably have a blue or black base on the bottom. And then Zavala, this is a Zavala Elementary, and it's just a district blue. So we want to get these finalized, approved by the principals and some of the senior team members, and get it back to the companies to finalize. So they're just doing the final panel work. Everything else is done. The structure for the sign is already made. So these, hopefully, we'll approve them here in the next week or so and get them back to the company, and they should be all put up during the holidays. Any questions on the marquee?
No, sir.
I have a comment, Mr. Powers, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. Oscar, I just wanted to say I agree with you. I think that it's really important that the schools be the prominent part of the name. And I think the other, I think that the one that you showed a little while ago, where it was maybe it was Zavala, is that the one? But I just think I think the name of the school has got to be prominent. Well, a lot of things.
That's what we're working on.
Identification is one. Yeah, so good for you. I like that. Mm-hmm. Now, what is the goal? Again, is this ultimately going to be on every campus, or how are the campuses chosen that have these? And the whole question of equity is where I'm always coming from. And so that's perfect. That's great. That's great. I like that. But anyway, how are we choosing which ones get these, if not all?
Well, historically, Ms. Fleury, we never put up marquees. The schools would do fundraisers with their PTAs, and they'd go buy the marquees and so forth.
Right.
But as time went by and technology advanced, and now you have all these digital signs, it became a lot harder for schools that, couldn't raise as much money as some of the other schools kind of became a disadvantage. So we decided to start helping fund some of these. And we had a batch of funds this past year. We were able to put up 5. So now that we started this trend, we're going to look at the TRE funds for this next coming year,
Yeah.
pick another 5 or 6, however many we can afford, however much we budget, and we want to do them all until we get them all done.
Yeah, I think that's right. Once you have these great ideas, Oscar, they're just gonna, everybody's gotta have them.
Right.
You keep having good ideas, so it's gotta go throughout the district. I think it's great. That's a mark of success.
Great. Any other questions? The Boga Stadium stone coping improvements, they're pretty much done. Here on the pilasters here, and all these stones here on top were all put new. They were falling off, they were breaking off, they were almost hitting people as they were walking by, so we've got them all replaced, reinforced. Even these here at the entry, all these are brand new. And up on top, this coping here and here, you can see a close-up. Though on the sides and up on top, they're all brand new, and they're anchored in a way where they're going to be a lot more secure and last for many, many more years into the future. So they're pretty much done. The architect's doing a punch list, and any little things that need corrections, the contractor will take care of. But we're about 96, 97% complete. And then we had one contingency allowance expenditure for the World Academy. We're doing some work in that courtyard, and there was one area that the soil kept eroding close to a drain gutter, and we thought there was a bust in the pipe, that everything was leaking out through there, and we had erosion, the soil was washing away, but they went in there, dug it out, ran cameras in there, and the lines were not collapsed or broken. So it's just a matter of having some reinforcement behind, creating like a wall to hold the dirt so it doesn't erode away. So the contractor is doing some work, and we had a change order of $2,700 to reinforce that. They'll put the fill back in, and we can finish off that project. So we still have $2,900 left in that contract, in the contingency allowance. So that's the only thing we have to report there. And we will be presenting one final payment at the board meeting for the Gutierrez, the first phase where we did the curtain wall for the kitchen, the dance floor, and the robotics room windows and all that. That one's already finished. The original contract was $106,000. We're getting back $2,600 of unused money, so we'll be paying off $103,575 contract with the final 5% retainage we'll be releasing. It'll be on your agenda next Tuesday. And that's pretty much all we have. If we don't have any questions, we can move on to the financial report for Julio.
Okay, any questions, anyone? Okay, Julio, you want to take us through the financial, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Powers, Dr. Cavazos, committee members. So here on page 71, you see the TRE construction report as of October 31st, 2020. Again, on year 1 through 5, we had budgeted $60 million. That's the first column there, $60 million of TRE funds, and 50 million TRE funds, 10 million of the maintenance tax notes that we did year 4. So $60 million year 1 through 5. Year 6 of the budget, we have $22 million, and that's our $10 million that we budgeted from TRE, plus another $4 million from our reserves, and the $7.5 million that UTRGV, or $8 million UTRGV is paying for the early college high school. That's their 50%. So that's a $22 million there. So in total, $82 million. What we spent year 1 through 5, $54.2 million. And what we spent year 6, and what we spent and committed so far this year, another $26.4 million. So the total spent and committed as of October 31st is $80.6 million, and that's how much we spent and committed so far. So we have a remainder of about $1.3 million for the rest of this fiscal year. Again, this is, the year 6 of the TRE budget, and, we have put in about $80.6 million overall into construction projects for the school district. Be glad to answer any questions that board committee members might have.
Any questions? Okay, I just want to, I know I say this every meeting, but we are really so fortunate, Oscar, to have you and your staff and Julio. I think I'm going on 12 years or 11 and a half, and I'm always amazed at, you would think that we would come to a point in time where there's not major projects going on, but they are always something major. I mean, I look here at Treasure Hills, major, early college, major, Transition Academy, all the, improvements to the air conditioning conditions and the circumstances, and on and on. And, I mean, you do a great job. Your staff is terrific. And, we thank you so much for everything, because we're in great hands, and thank you again for doing such a great job. So,
Thank you, Mr. Powers.
if there's nothing else, then we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
We're still
Thank you.
on.
I'm ready.
We are live.
All right, welcome everyone to the Transforming Teaching and Learning Committee for already December 1st, 2020. And this meeting will be an audio-visual video conference pursuant to Governor Abbott's temporary suspension of open meetings law, and it will be conducted audio-video. And it is viewable to the public. And we have two core agenda items. The first is that we're going to call the meeting to order, but then we will move quickly into the core agenda item of the teacher incentive allotment update, and this will be led by Ms. Veronica Corton. Thank you, Ms. Corton.
Madam President, board members, Dr. Cavazos, senior team, and audience. Glad to be back from a great holiday. I trust that everybody had a great holiday season. So this afternoon, I am actually here to talk a little bit about our teacher incentive allotment. So I will be coming to our board on a monthly basis. Part of our feedback loop will also be with our board of trustees. And so here's our second installment of the teacher incentive allotment update. So I'm going to quickly go through some big, high concepts of the teacher incentive allotment that we covered last month. So this is a great opportunity for us. Through House Bill 3, we have the opportunity to create a local designation system for our teachers to earn incentives for performance. And so currently we are working on submitting our teacher incentive allotment application. And so part of what we're looking at is there are a couple of things that I want to highlight. So first and foremost, great opportunity, right, for us to be able to provide incentives for our teachers. The incentives that we will have will be predetermined by TEA, and they range anywhere between $3,000 to $32,000. So as a school district, what we're working on currently is creating our own local designation system. And so with the local designation system, we heard last month that there's two items that have to be part of that local designation system. The first one being student growth factors and finding a way to quantify student growth for every teacher. And then secondly, looking at teacher observations. The third area, which is an option, includes additional factors. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that when I move into the design team work. All of this work is being led by what TEA refers to as success factors. So there's essentially 6 big areas, and when we submit our application, TEA will look at our application and compare it against what they call success factors. And so in all of this work, we will be guided by those success factors. So if you look up on the screen, there's a quote there: timely and informed communication with layers of stakeholders will ensure a successful design and rollout of TIA. We have heard time and time again, particularly in our district, that we need to bring people along in the journey. We need to ensure that, particularly when we have these high impact innovations, that we ensure that we have the voice of our stakeholders at the table, both in the design and with the rollout. And so it would not be an HCISD innovation if we didn't have a framework to do just that. So we do have different layers of stakeholders that we will be bringing to the table. First of all, with our stakeholder design teams. Design teams are no stranger to design teams. Our district has had a lot of successful innovations via design teams. And so we will continue to have design teams as this is rolled out. Secondly, teacher focus groups and teachers of the year. we know that the teacher voice is going to have to be very prominent as we look at different models from around the state and as we look to create our own local designation system. Not only are teacher voices important, we expand that stakeholder lens to DEIC, because in our DEIC, we have people from the community and we also have parents that sit on that committee. And lastly, our TIA leadership team. And so I'll talk a little bit more about the leadership team here in just a second. I do want to go back and talk about the voice of the teacher, because as we heard from our board and as we continue to work on our rubric, one thing that's really important is to ensure that the teachers have a voice at the table. And so you see on the screen that we have two different groups of teachers that we're going to be looking to for feedback. One of those being our teacher focus group. Those teachers were nominated by their campus to serve on that focus group. And so every campus has one representative in the focus group, and they also have one representative in their Teachers of the Year group. But we didn't stop there with the teacher voice. Included in our design teams currently, we have Teachers of the Year who will be part of those design teams, both from this year and from years past. So we wanted to make sure that definitely the voice of the teacher was going to be something that we continue to incorporate throughout the entire time. So as we looked at the success factors, we found that there was 4 very prominent themes within the success factors. The first one up on the screen, data sources and eligibility. That's going to be quite a big design team. That's going to be led by Dalia Garcia. And her principal leads include Tanya Garza, Arlie Tamez, and Fernando Reyes. And on that design team, that the charge of that particular team will be to create the metrics and the rubric for qualification for the incentives. And so Mrs. Garcia is going to lead that. Second design team is led by Mrs. Romero. And alongside Mrs. Romero are Irma Davis and Mike Reyes. And so when you think about the teacher incentive allotment, one of the areas that we're going to really study quite a bit is T-tests, the teacher observation. And so everything T-tests will be looked at and will be thought through with this design team that Mrs. Romero is going to lead. Everything starting from the very beginning of the year all the way through, and what has to happen within the scope of an academic year. Then Mr. Villarreal will be leading a design team titled Additional Factors. So in our TIA application, we do have the option as a district to include additional factors. Some of those additional factors could include the voice of the student feedback on teacher and their experience in the classroom, and several other areas that we are going to explore with that design team. Working with Mr. Villarreal, we have Jamie Galan and Pedro Sanchez. And then lastly, we have the systems redesign and professional development plan. We have heard time and time again in our district that we can't bring innovations to the same systems that we have today. If we're truly going to innovate, we need to rethink systems. And so the design team that I will lead along with Mindy Sanchez and Juan Garcia, our charge is to look at current systems and to ensure that we have systems redesigned as we roll out our teacher incentive allotment. And of course, professional development plan. That's going to be a big one. I will tell you that aside from the success factors, the other big influencer of this entire TIA application is Holdsworth. So throughout the last year and a half, we have come to you all and come to our school community to talk about how we can build capacity within our system. I'll tell you that the things that we've learned along the way through Holdsworth have already made their way to the design phase of what we're working on, because we realize that this is going to give us an opportunity to build capacity in our teachers in a very different way. And so to leverage the opportunity and to make sure that it's in alignment with Holdsworth, we have brought that all those concepts to the table as we are working on this. I'll talk a little bit about December. December is going to be an important month for us. What we're working on with the leadership team is we're going to refine our district rationale, and that'll guide the rest of our application, and also look at a timeline for product development. Last month, I talked to you a little bit about the timeline, and we're actually looking at bringing our draft application to the board in March for feedback, and looking to take that in April for a possible adoption. But with the leadership team, we needed to make sure that our timeline was in place and that we were set to go with everything that we needed to accomplish within these next few months. The other big thing that'll happen with our design teams, we're excited. We have our first design team meeting on December the 10th. And during that meeting, we'll provide an overview of TIA and the work that we're going to be embarking on. But we're also going to have our design teams create their plan of action for ensuring that all of the success factors that are assigned to that design team are indeed part of our TIA application. And then lastly this month, we're wanting to just introduce the concept of TIA to our teachers. The teacher focus groups have been a very powerful tool in the past to collect feedback and just to kind of get some thoughts from different layers of stakeholders. And so that's what we're going to be doing with our teacher focus group and with our teachers of the year. And so it is a pretty ambitious timeline. I have to say that we have been working with 2 lead researchers who are supporting the work that we're doing. Those 2 lead researchers are Dr. Daryl Mickle, no stranger to Harlingen CISD. He's been with us for a few years now and has helped us with some of our innovations. And secondly is Gracie Gutierrez. So both of our lead researchers, the role of those lead researchers is to ensure that we have the latest and the greatest research available to create our local designation system. And so with that, I will now go to our last slide, which is questions and open dialogue.
Thank you, Ms. Corton. Are there questions on this topic?
Chairman, I have a question.
Please, go ahead. There you
Brought
go.
a great presentation.
Your
Excited
video
about-
is off. But,
Oh, sorry.
no, I just wanted you to know. Please go ahead, though.
Great presentation. Very excited about what direction we're going to be taking. I do have a question though.
Sure.
What is it? Are the funds limited in terms of how many teachers are actually going to be taking advantage of this situation? Is there going to be a percentage like 10% of all the teachers are going to be able to receive some of this, or is it going to be every single one of them that is eligible will receive it? How does that work?
That's a great question. So under House Bill 3, we are afforded the opportunity to have all of our teachers qualify for the range of money, for the range of incentive. And so there's not an actual percentage that we have to be true to or a number of teachers. Instead, we create the local designation system, share that with our teachers, and then along the way, those that meet the metrics that we will create for our district qualify for that, for the incentive. And the way that works is that once they qualify for that money, and in our district, if we say this is a recognized teacher, that notation goes on their SBEC record for 5 years. And so that teacher is entitled to that particular incentive for a timeline of 5 years. One of the things that we thought was a huge celebration is that teachers can qualify. We don't have to have a cap on that. So definitely something that we want to make sure that our teachers are very well informed about.
Okay, but I guess my question is because there's 3 levels. There's, help me, mastery,
Exemplary.
exemplary, mastery,
And master, exemplary, and recognized.
Okay, so at any one of those 3 levels, a teacher is eligible for some form of compensation. Is that correct?
That is correct. And so the range is preset by TEA. And it's really dependent on where the school is located, and then they look at demographics and things of that sort. And so in our district, we would have a range. It's not going to be the exact same amount at every single school. For the 3 different levels, the design team that Dahlia is going to be, that Mrs. Garcia is going to be leading, will essentially create a rubric for the qualification. Like, what does it mean to be recognized in our district? What does it mean to be exemplary? And what does it mean to be mastered? And in the design of the application, once it's all done, we'll submit it, and there will be a review by Texas Tech and TEA to make sure that what we're pushing forward is reliable and valid.
Okay, and I just want to kind of get, so let's just say, for the sake of this conversation, everything is submitted to A&M. They approve everything that y'all's hard work you set up, and we're ready to start. And we have the three levels. At that point in time, then I'm assuming the teachers are going to know what's expected of them, because it's hard to be evaluated with them not knowing what they're going to be evaluated on. So they have to know the rules of the game to be able to participate and achieve those goals. So once that is done, and the teachers have all that information, and then the levels of funding is going to be dependent, and it's going to be varied. At that point in time, do you see 90% of all of our teachers receiving some form of compensation at one of those three levels? Or are you looking at about 20%, or what's that percentage? Question number one. And question number two, where is that funding coming from? Is that a funding source coming from TEA? That's a one-time thing, and then from then on, then we incorporate that into our budget?
So I'm going to back up. First of all, great summary. So what you talked about, like the teachers have to know the rules of the game, right? And so should we be approved, and if we get the blessing to start and to be part of a teacher incentive allotment, our teachers will be informed, and we will have, part of what we're designing right now is a communication plan for the rollout. And so starting with next school year, our teachers will know what those different levels look like. Reason being is that next year will be what we call a data capture. And so the work that they're working on next year will essentially be the work that we look at to qualify for an incentive. As far as a percentage is concerned, I don't know that I have an actual percentage. And the reason being is that in our preliminary conversations, we want to ensure that there's an avenue for every teacher to be able to have access to the incentive funding. So I'm not sure about a percentage. And I haven't really come across statistics of other districts that have said this is the percentage of our teachers that qualify. I can certainly look into that. So that was your first question. Secondly, this is coming by way of House Bill 3. And so what we know today is that this funding will continue to come to the districts via the state, and not something that we necessarily have to keep going in a couple of years. Now, I will say that as we have looked at all of the latest information, we're happy to hear that we're going to continue to, the state is moving in the same direction and continuing to have teacher incentive allotment. I think if state funding formulas change, maybe we'll see something change at that point. But as it stands right now, we should continue to have that flow of investment from the state.
Well, my final question, Madam Chairman, is in the best case scenario, Veronica, I would hope that 100% is going to be getting money, because that's saying that every teacher is on their A game and doing a fantastic job for the kids.
Yeah. The other thing, Mr. De Leon, is that in other districts that have already started the program, there are some teachers that have opted out of it because it's just not something they want to pursue, and it's too much work, or they are just not interested. They're going to be exiting the profession, those kind of things. So those things come into play. But one of the positions that we're taking is we want to create a system by which everybody has access to it. Who opts in is really a teacher choice. But to your point, it'd be a great day if 100% of our teachers are accessing it, because that means that even when we're hiring people with that understanding that we want to hire people that have already gotten into those levels of performance, because that's what other districts are going to be looking for when they're hiring. Well, what do you have a current designation on your certificate? Because that's going to be public knowledge now.
Thank you, Veronica. Thank you, Dr. Reiniger, for allowing me to ask those questions.
Thank you.
Great questions, thank you. Are there other questions?
Madam Chair, I have a quick question. The metrics that are to be developed by Ms. Garcia and who are the two principals with her?
Tanya Garza, Arlie Tamez, and Fernando Reyes.
Those metrics, is that something that, and you might have touched on this, but are we getting guidance from TA? Or is that something that we're going to develop completely on our own as a group?
Sure, that's a great question. So we are studying exemplar plans that we have studied and researched. As part of the work that Gracie Gutierrez and Dr. Mickle have done, they have gone further than just the exemplar plans that TEA has provided for us to talk to districts that have successful models. And so we have been studying that. In addition to that, TEA also has a lot of guidance. I have to say they have been really good with answering questions. We've had quite a few questions, as you can imagine. But they have offered a lot of guidance. And what they continue to tell us and to remind us is that these measurement tools have to be valid and reliable. And so as we're looking at what we currently have and looking at our systems today, we're also aware that some of the measurement tools may need to look different as we start the year next year. Mrs. Romero and Mr. Villarreal are right there with us, and as we are working with the design teams, we are collaborating and sharing a lot of our findings simply because it is a pretty big initiative. And the innovation, I'm sure, is going to be a huge celebration. We want to make sure that we do it right and that everybody understands the direction that we're moving.
All right, thank you.
That's your-
Yeah.
Okay.
You're muted, Chair.
Mrs. Flourier, I can see you want to ask a question, but we can't hear you quite yet.
You know, I unmuted
There
and
you are.
it mutes again. I haven't figured that out. I'll have to ask Javi about that. Wonderful, Javi. Brilliant presentation. Brilliant concept, Veronica. I'm so excited about this. And the most exciting part to me is the emphasis that is being placed upon the rubric and the fact that everyone has an opportunity to participate in this, and that we have moved it into statistical performance data as opposed to personality favorites. And that's been the problem in the past, because even though it perhaps was not ever done in that manner, it was always viewed in that manner by some of the people on all the campuses that I ever knew. So I really applaud the state, and I applaud you and the committees for making this objective and a goal that everyone can strive for. And as Javier and Dr. Cavazos have said, what a wonderful day in the district when everybody succeeds. So I think it's fabulous. To that point, I wanted to ask a little bit more information, please, if you could, given that context of what is, how do you see the teacher observation going? Because some teachers have had issues with observation depending upon who is observing, and they felt they did something in a certain way and the observer did not happen to see it. So how is that being managed? Because it seems to me like that's the only place that maybe could, that's going to really need to be convincing.
So in our districts, I'm going to touch on a couple of items. So first of all, Mrs. Romero, I think will have some great solutions to the calibration. I will say today that we have already begun the calibration process with our principals and with our assistant principals and instructional coaches. Instructional coaches do not do observations, but our principals and our assistant principals do. And so as we're meeting with our principals, actually tomorrow we have another one of these calibration activities. What we are doing right now this year in preparation to get the system ready is that we are showcasing videos of teachers, current teachers in our classrooms. We share those with principals, and in pods we work on calibration. What we have seen is that when people have dialogue about classroom expectations, and when they can talk about ratings and talk about evaluations, that strengthens that streamlines the expectations, and it really helps to make sure that what is proficient at one campus will be proficient at the other. It will be definitely something that we will redesign. And so through the guidance of Mrs. Romero, I think she's got a couple of things that she's researched already as far as models that are effective and what that can look like in our TIA application. I will tell you though, it is something that we are aware of, that calibration has to be a huge priority for us this year. And so as we're working on that, we are calibrating every month with our principals and our assistant principals and having dialogue about what great teaching looks like in the district. Because we do know that that's going to be an area that we're going to have to really be rock solid on. I mentioned the instructional coaches, and the reason I mentioned the instructional coaches is because one of the areas that we have found in the research is that teachers need to have a teacher champion at the campus that will help to continue to develop their skills. And so the instructional coaches play that role. And so we want to make sure that as we are going through the year, we're calibrating with principals and assistant principals, and also refining the skill set of the coaches so that they can be that teacher champion and they can help them to continue developing skills so that they can be more qualified, more highly qualified, and get closer to the incentives. So we have already begun our process to prep the system, and the prep is mainly in human capital.
Now, Jerry, I do want to add that your point is very well made, and it has to get to the design team, because there's a design team that's going to be looking at our systems and structures because of that. Because sometimes when you take on this type of innovation, it may not fit in the existing way that we do business, right? And that's critical, because as you calibrate and you look at how are you going to assess a teacher, how are you going to do evaluations. Years ago, we did a calibration process where we found that some of the highest performing teachers were getting not the highest performing evaluations. And some of the lowest performing teachers, based on a data point, were getting higher evaluations, right? And so when we were studying those data points, we began this whole process of calibrating our observations and how we do that so that what people are looking for, the look-fors are the same and so forth. But as you look at systems and structures, the committee may come up with a recommendation that there has to be, district level type of observers that are specialists in certain areas that are going out and observing those teachers that are teaching those areas, right? And so that's why there's a need for a design team to look at our current structures to determine whether the structures need to be different in some areas, right? And you have, for example, I'll just give you an example. You have some principals and assistant principals that their training, their formal training is in early childhood. And so the question is, should they be the ones focusing on observing the early childhood teachers in the campuses, right? And so, but I don't want to cap the creative thinking of the design teams, because I think that's where the good work comes. But we also have to get approval at the state level and so forth. But that's why I thought it was important to put a design team to look at our structures in place so that they can work in tandem with the other design teams that are putting together the rubric. Hope that helps. You're muted, Jerry, and I know that what you're saying is complimentary to Mr. De Leon. Oh.
It was very complimentary to all of you. This is just brilliant. This is the closest we've ever come, but it's also the most intentional we've ever been. And so I just applaud you. I'm very excited about this. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could really get this right? And I tell you what, I think HCI still come the closest to getting it right of anyone in the state, and it is because of how we create structures and how we work through structures, including design teams. Thank you. And our leadership. Thank you very much, all of you leaders involved in this.
Very good. Thank you for the discussion on that. And just as a transition point, I want to add my excitement about this topic, and in particular, I think that the way you've laid this out and the structure allows for input from teachers at, just across the spectrum. Our teachers are wonderful, 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 and we want to hear from all of them, those that have been recognized as Teachers of the Year and those who have yet to be recognized as Teachers of the Year. And so the opportunity to hear from everyone then also helps with that buy-in. And so, I think in the focus groups, in the research, in the vetting, et cetera, where we're getting that cross-section of input, I think that's going to help everybody feel really comfortable with this and strive to be exactly the kind of teacher they want to be. So really, really happy about that. Thank you so much, Ms. Corton, for the presentation. Our next,
Dr. Reiniger, I think
oh,
Dr.
I'm so
Muniz.
sorry, Dr. Muniz.
No
Yes,
problem.
sir.
Hey, listen, great presentation, love it. Questions, a couple questions from a bigger picture point of view, if I may. Soon to be Dr. Corton, right? Bigger picture, from a state level, if teachers are going from district to district and they have these labels now, right? How do we know that the performance is the same in one district and another district? And I know you're alluding to some stuff here. And if we have one governing body saying, hey, this is agreeable, but how do we know for sure that that's happening?
So student growth, looking at the measures with student growth and teacher observation, I'll talk a little bit about that. Because student growth is not just it's not just the accountability system, it's other measures that have to be reliable and valid. So I'll talk a little bit about the teacher observation, because there are very specific components that have to be in any teacher observation system that a district uses. For example, in our district, we use what we call t-tests, but there are 2 or 3 other models. And as we do the overlay of t-tests and those models, the common factors are very prevalent. And so any teacher observation system, you have to, if you're not under t-tests, you have to have TEA approve your system and approve the tool that you're using. And so all of our teacher observations now have to have this feedback loop, and much like a coaching model. The other area is the additional factors. And so I can foresee that the additional factors may look different in our district than in others. The other 2, however, will look very similar. And having Texas Tech be that thought partner with TEA, we have gleaned so much information. And I know Dr. C probably doesn't want to hear that, right? But we have gleaned a lot of information from Texas Tech partners about the process and about being reliable and valid, and having reliable and valid tools. The other thing too is that as they're coming our way, and as you think of the landscape, and I am going to pull us up to the state level. You think of the landscape of what the profession of teaching is going to look like. When I talk about the redesign of systems, one of those redesigns that we talked about with our leaders is recruitment and retention. And so we can probably forecast that as we look at systems redesign, it will probably in some way, shape, or form make its way to retention and recruitment, because the reality is that we want to get them here, but we also want to keep those exemplar and master teachers here. So what is the edge that Harlingen CISD will have? And in working with the design teams and the leadership team, that's definitely an area that we have already listed as something we need to look at and consider. Because we do want to get them here, but mainly we want to keep them here. And we want them to spread their influence past just the classroom. So looking at systems on how to do that.
Thank you for that answer. My next question is, how many districts are actually using this program now?
So I'm going to look at my numbers right quick. We have, in our area, we have about 17, and there's about 11 school districts that are in the same cohort application as we are. And so I was very curious to see where we were. Now, all of those districts are at different levels and at different points in their TIA implementation, but throughout the region, that kind of gives you an idea. And with the school districts that I looked at, I went from Brownsville all the way up to La Jolla. So that kind of gives you an idea, particularly why, when we think about recruitment, you think about MIT, and you heard me speak earlier about Holdsworth. We really have to leverage what we're learning right now, because it's not just about getting them here. It's what is the difference that we're going to make. You think about a teacher from their first day through retirement. What is the game changer for them? And what is going to keep them here? And so part of our systems redesign will be thinking that through.
Which is super, super exciting, and of course the bottom line question, which I know Ms. Flourier, she always asks this question, and I need to ask it to it, is, how we got to make sure we relate this to our students, right? That we are definitely bringing in the best schools, definitely bringing the best systems, but we can also relate it to our students, because, in the business world, we see this all the time, where you can bring in some amazing systems, but we missed the target.
Right.
We missed the target. Yeah, we are measuring stuff, and we're looking at stuff, and sometimes you can actually hyper measure stuff so much that you become inefficient. And guess what? We're not productive. We're inefficient. We're inefficient so badly that the
You froze up, Bobby.
I was making sure it wasn't just me.
No,
Dr. Muniz, we lost you.
I hope that he can hear,
there
but
he
now
is. There he is.
Oh.
now.
There,
Okay.
you're back.
So now is probably the time to tell you that our secret weapon on our systems redesign design team is Shane Strupart. So because the communication has to be spot on, right? And so it's not just about come recruit the teachers. There's a lot of layers that we need to work through. And so he is a big part of our leadership team for systems redesign. Number one, he's going to be the master at crafting the message. And so we certainly wanted to include him in there. But number two, the skill set of that team is so different. And so we needed to make sure that he was at the table, because when we get ready to tell the story of what it is going to do and what it has done, that department really needs to be a part of that. So that's my answer for your question. No.
That's a great answer, right? And bottom line is, if we can't measure it, how can we improve it, right? So
Right.
Good job. Very, very, very good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great.
May I ask one,
Questions?
Dr. Weiner, just a quick follow-up to a question that Bobby asked. Veronica, super questions, Bobby. But Veronica, do we have any research that we've done, or have we created the structure for how we will find out why good teachers stay with us and the reverse? Or is this all new?
Part of our design team that we are looking at that because I think we've all, I would say senior team and principals included, we all have asked teachers, like, so what is it? Like, what makes you stay, right? Why HCISD? Aside from that, just the culture. Most times, I will tell you, it's the culture. Secondly, they always talk about this spirit of professional learning, like a continuous professional learning. That's partially why we have that professional development plan in our design team, because more times than not, and the money is going to be a great bonus, right? That's a wonderful incentive. Aside from that, they want to feel like they are heard and that they are invested in, not just monetarily, but as a person, we have an investment in them. And most of the time, when we did our strategic plan, we studied that goal too quite a bit. And that was the feedback that we got from the teacher focus groups at that time. And as we continue to ask questions, that's what it is. I continue to grow here. I have opportunities. I can be a teacher and be the most successful teacher I want to be. I have the option to go and have a different trajectory if I want to. It's how do we create a more robust system of that, really, is what we're looking at with the design team.
Veronica, and I won't prolong the anymore, but I do like what you said about consistency, and you're going to have a structure, because anytime you evaluate, it's very subjective. And there's some principals that have a big heart, and they'll just give good evaluations, and maybe some others are a little tougher, and so there's a lot of inconsistencies from campus to campus. So I'm glad that you all are setting up a universal evaluation so that it'll be fair for all teachers across the district. Because if not, then you're going to have a lot of good teachers being evaluated in a not maybe fair manner, for lack of better words. So I'm glad you're creating a structure so that it is universal and everybody feels comfortable, and you take as much as possible. Now, anytime you evaluate, there's going to be some subjective to it. It's just the nature of evaluation. But if we can eliminate as much as possible and have it more concrete and more data-driven and productivity-wise, I think it's going to even make it that much better. So great job.
Thank you. Great questions.
Well, if there was any doubt that we were interested in this topic, that should be gone by now.
That's why it's
We're very
gonna,
interested.
that's why it's gonna be in every meeting moving forward till we get to
Every
April.
meeting.
So,
So we really are, and we're thrilled to get these updates, and we're thankful to all of the teams working on this. But it's great, very exciting. So Ms. Scoggin is up next, and we are going to have an update on COVID-19. Thank you so much, Ms. Scoggin, for being here, and we look forward to hearing what you say.
Thank you so much, and likewise, good afternoon, everyone. It is so nice to see you. I hope everyone is doing well. All right. So good afternoon again, Dr. Reiniger, members of the board, Dr. Cavazos, and your team and audience. And so this afternoon, I will be sharing with you an update regarding staffing during COVID-19 pandemic. So we will have several employees that will be retiring at the midterm, and as such, we will have an increased need for long-term substitutes until those positions are filled. Due to COVID-19, we have had an increased need for long-term substitutes as well. We have seen an increase in the number of employees who have to be out long-term due to COVID-related situations, whether that's for personal illness or for adhering to a quarantine period. And so as such, we have seen an increased need for long-term substitutes. When we look at the 2019-20 school year compared to currently, when we look at number of retirements at the midterm, you'll see that it's very similar in our numbers. So this year we have received 19 notices of retirement here at the midterm, some in December, right at the end, right before the Christmas break, and some that will work through about mid-January. And you'll see again that the numbers are very similar to last year at the midterm. However, things are a little bit different when it comes to covering for our vacancies. And so we are needing to secure long-term substitutes to cover these assignments until we're able to secure suitable replacements. And so this year, we have had, as a result of the pandemic, we have had an increased need for long-term substitutes for both teachers and paraprofessionals that are out long-term. We saw at the onset, at the beginning of the school year, we had several employees who requested to be out for the semester due to health issues or lack of childcare for an infant, for example. And so again, we have had numerous paraprofessionals and teachers who have been out. So we've had about 40 teachers who have been out this semester and about 10 paraprofessionals. So the numbers are similar when we compare to this time last year. When we compare to the fall semester of 1920, similar numbers in our numbers of teachers and paraprofessionals who have been out, but the length of the term that they have been out has definitely differed. And so although we needed some long-term subs this time last year, our employees may not have been out for as long as they have been out this semester. And so that is where we have seen a difference, where we have needed some of our substitutes to stay in place since August 31st until now. So that is definitely a little different situation. And so many times we have had to have our paraprofessionals at our campuses cover this semester whenever we have teachers that are out due to illness or just long-term absence. And so our paraprofessionals have really stepped up and have been covering these teacher assignments. And so they have gone above and beyond. And so we know that when we hire a paraprofessional, they have specific job assignments. And at times they are asked to cover here or there for a class period or half a day or an occasional coverage. But this school year has been a little bit different. And most of our campuses have leaned on and relied on our paraprofessionals who have very graciously stepped up and accepted to cover for long-term absences whenever teachers had to be out. So they are the ones that are covering for us many times when we're not able to secure a long-term substitute. Our paraprofessionals have become very, very familiar with our learning platforms, and they again have just done an amazing job throughout this semester as they have been the ones filling in numerous times. And so as we move forward and as we look at, what can we do to incentivize for those paraprofessionals who have gone above and beyond, who have not at any point in time had any concerns with covering, but who have just graciously stepped up and done the work. We would like to look at the possibility of incentivizing for those paraprofessionals who have served in long-term assignments and determining whether that's after 10 days of covering, what would that look like? How could we incentivize their daily rate to compensate them for the additional duties of lesson planning and attending PLCs and grading and posting grades? And so this is an area that we would also like to look at. In an effort to secure substitute teachers for teachers and paraprofessionals, the district is evaluating a plan at this time to see how we could increase the daily rate of pay for long-term substitutes. And so we are very fortunate in that we have a very large substitute pool. However, this year, due to the pandemic and due to concerns with returning to work, we have had numerous substitutes who have not been readily available to work, and we certainly understand the reasons why. We have been very fortunate in that we've been able to hire a great group of substitutes who have been able to come on board and help us in securing day-to-day assignments as well as long-term assignments. So we have hired about 25 new substitutes. Many of them are degreed and certified, anxious for the opportunity to gain experience as they're seeking teaching assignments in their future. And so we would like to look, though, at how can we compensate and incentivize our substitutes who do commit to working for us for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, 3 months, right? What can we do differently for them? Because we know that the expectation for them is very different as they're going to be fulfilling the role of the teacher. And we realize that it's a win-win. We know that when our students have consistency, and we have the same substitute working with a group of children for a week or two or a month or 2 months, we know that that makes a huge difference, right? So we know that there's that consistency. We know that our students become familiar with that substitute, the substitute familiar with the children, and they're not seeing someone different every day. So we know that it's a win-win. And so I'd like to share with you what we currently offer our substitutes, the rate of pay. Our certified and degreed substitutes, we pay $120 a day. Our degreed substitutes who are not certified earn $100 a day, and our non-degreed substitutes earn $65 a day. Those rates of pay are extremely comparable. We're very competitive in looking at not only the Rio Grande Valley, but other areas in Texas. Our rates of pay are right in line, if not surpassing other neighboring districts. And so we feel confident with our rates of pay. What we would like to look at, though, is a recommendation for substitutes rate of pay for those subs who are in long-term assignments during the COVID-19 pandemic, so for this school year. Looking at an incentive and increasing that daily rate for our certified substitutes, $250 per day, our degreed subs, $120 per day, and our non-degreed subs, $85 per day. And so again, we would look at criteria, whether that be after 10 days of commitment and being in an assignment, going back and paying them the additional incentive. And so we would work closely again with our campus principals on that to be sure that we are compensating accurately, and so that our subs who are committed and saying, I'll be there each day for 10 days, for 15 days, for a month, whatever that is, that we now go ahead and compensate them according to this recommended substitute rate of pay. Again, just because it is such a unique year, and because the need is there. And so we again have seen an increase in the numbers of absences, not only day-to-day absences. The day-to-day absences are not what are concerning to us. Where we're seeing a need is in the 10 days, the 15 days, when we're going to have someone out and it's due to COVID-related situations. So again, we'd like to ensure that we have adequate coverage at our campuses and that our substitutes are able to realize a pay differential because they are committing and they are rolling up their sleeves and they're committing to be there for us each and every day. Another area that we'd like to look at is our auxiliary substitutes. And so our district hires custodial and child nutrition substitutes. And this is a group of individuals that we rely heavily on. And so no different than our teachers and our paraprofessionals, we have seen in our auxiliary departments also, more frequent absences this semester due to COVID-related situations. And so we are in need of additional substitutes. And at times it's been a little harder to recruit substitutes in our auxiliary department because our rate of pay has been $7.50 per hour. And so we'd like to see if that could be increased to $9 per hour for this school year due to the nature of the different year, of the very unique year due to the COVID pandemic. And so our substitutes, they come in, they work for us as substitutes, they fill in when someone is out on a day-to-day basis or in a long-term absence. In the child nutrition department or custodial department, and our substitutes are gaining hands-on experience. They're learning how we do things here at HCISD, and then they are prepared to be considered as vacancies become available. So our substitutes is the pool that we look at and that our principals will consider whenever they do have a vacancy arise. And so at the midterm, we also anticipate several retirements in both custodial and child nutrition departments. We know that several of our employees have made that determination to retire, and so we will be looking at our substitutes to fill those positions. However, this year we've not had such a large substitute pool in these areas, and so we'd like to see if we can make this recommendation, again, in an effort to recruit and retain substitutes that we know will go on to become full-time employees. At times, our substitutes in our auxiliary department work for us for a month or 6 weeks, and then the position becomes available, and they are the ones considered and often are the ones that are recommended to fill vacancies, and they're ready to go because they've received that hands-on training and they know how we do things here in our school district. And so, again, this is another area that we'd like to bring forward for consideration for a differential in pay. And so I know that's a lot of information and really quick, but that concludes my presentation. I thank you for your kind attention, and should you have any questions, I'm happy to try my best to answer any questions you may have.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. And Dr. Cavazos, can you clarify these recommendations? They would come before the board at the next meeting. That's the plan on this?
That's correct, Dr. Reiniger. So today, the discussion is really to get a feel for where we're headed, but it would have to, it requires board action, and that would be at next week's regular board meeting.
Very good. Okay, I just wanted to check that first. So, committee members, do we have any questions or comments?
Madam Chair, I have a quick question. Ms. Scoggin, you mentioned that those pay increases or the differentials would be effective for just this school year?
Yes, sir. So we'd like to look at, yes, sir. We'd like to look at this school year because it is such a unique year due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and because we know that our substitutes are coming in and they're willing to come in to fill in for us for long-term assignments. And so we feel like, in all fairness to them as well, for being committed to coming in and to joining us in these long-term assignments, offering them an incentive to come in. And so again, our daily rates of pay for our substitutes are very competitive rates. And so as I did a comparison and again looked at neighboring districts here in the Valley as well as around the state, we are highly competitive in our daily rates. And so I don't feel like it's a concern as far as our daily rates of pay. However, we'd like to just go one step above and say this is what we have to offer you because you're willing to join us and fill in for us for long-term assignments. Because we know that there is a reluctance, on the behalf of many employees to return to work due to the pandemic.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you.
Clarification, thank you. Other questions? Ms. Poirier?
Yes, thank you. Debbie, I think it's an excellent idea, of course. It's an excellent idea. We really, I appreciate the fact that, and applaud you for, we've got to be sure that we're very balanced in our pay, and we don't want to just have people at one end of the spectrum being the beneficiaries of a more generous salary arrangement. So I'm really pleased about it. I would just like to ask a question. Does this imply, Deb, that we have used the full resources already? We've used up the resources of those also degree teachers who are in our pool waiting for jobs?
Yes, and so we've had many of our, say, retired teachers who are substitutes and who are veteran substitutes and who have been working for us for several years now, who have come back and who have joined us and who are filling in long-term assignments. And so we've been very fortunate to have them back and willing to join us and come back into our schools. And so currently we have about 40 substitutes that are in long-term assignments. Many of them are returning substitutes, and then we have a few that we have hired brand new for this school year. But yes, we always let all of our substitutes know whenever there's a long-term assignment or any absence that needs coverage, and then our substitutes are able to determine if they're available and willing to come into work.
You muted, Jerry.
You muted.
Thank you. Thank you, and that's important information. What I really meant was, have we used up our talent resources, our talent pool, our talent resource pool? Am I incorrect? Would they not be the first place we would go to replace teachers? Have we used all 25?
They've actually, well, that we have been able to keep 4 or 5 at this point, but they've actually been placed because some have left already. Teachers have resigned effective immediately, and so they've been placed. So we're trying to replenish our talent pool, just like we're trying to replenish our substitute pool for auxiliary too. That's been depleted as well. And so, this is an effort to entice the retired teacher that may be out there that says, I'm not coming for 120, but I may come for 150, and they're willing to come in and help us during these unique times. So
It's a great plan. Thank you.
now, Jerry, I know that you're certified, and I'm just saying, Jerry, we can't hire you, but we would.
Just
We would hire you.
let me get to those babies. What I was wondering is, and I think one of my colleagues not too long ago asked this question, but it may have been pre-COVID. Do we need to increase the size permanently of the talent resource pool?
I think we're at 15 slots right now that we currently fund. I think that's adequate. However, this is a very unique year. And so, but over the last, since we've implemented, it's been adequate to have those 15 slots, so.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Very good. Any other comments or questions? Well, thank you so much, Ms. Goggin. That was very helpful to give us the details to understand that. So really appreciate that. I know all of us are, indebted to you in your careful assessments to make sure that we maintain the good work we do every day. So, did I have a comment? No. Okay, so then the last topic is just looking forward to future meetings and topics that we might cover, Dr. Cavazos?
Yes, Dr. Reiniger. So just as a reminder to all the board members that TIA, because it is a very important project, will be a continuous topic agenda item moving forward until it goes to the board for final approval. And that's targeted to be in April. And I think that these discussions around the teacher incentive allotment are critical to inform the design teams what the board is also thinking and what they want to make certain that we put in place and that we consider moving forward. Other items I think I shared with you the last time, we have to do a circle back to some of the programs that we've implemented and that are in year 1, year 2 of implementation, so that you get a good feel of where we are. We're anxiously awaiting word from the IB program, but we really need to discuss what does IB look like in the middle school and what does it look like long-term. We also need to discuss with you all what are some of the things that we've learned during COVID that post-COVID we want to keep as part of our practice and inform our districts moving forward. Another critical part, and it keeps coming up, Jerry just brought it up in the facility committee meeting, is this idea of we have great ideas, but how do we scale it up and every campus gets maybe a marquee and every campus gets, the vestibule protections and so forth. And so it's hard to believe that we are in year 6 of the TRE. We committed to the community 5 years and we put out a 5-year plan. We've surpassed what we said we were going to do with the community. This board has invested almost $80 million in this district in 6 years. We haven't rolled out a bond package in 6 years in a long time for that amount. But it's time to really sit down and do a deep dive on what does TRE look like for the next 5 years. And we need to start those conversations because some of the projects that you all have funded have been in the academic side and in the academic world. You've transformed campuses to embrace the new programs that they have, like Gutierrez Middle School of the Arts and Sciences, the Vernon World Languages Academy, the IB schools. And so we have to look forward as to what programmings are going to look like so that we allocate the appropriate funding to transform those learning spaces as well. So there's a lot of work to be done in the midst of navigating a pandemic, but you all have been very clear, and we've been very clear, that even when we navigate a pandemic, there's opportunities that we need to be studying, and we're going to get past this, and we want to still continue to transform this great school district. So those are some of the high-level highlights. TIA being one of the most important, I think is going to be a big game changer alongside Holsworth work. And so we're in a great moment in time where these kind of anchors are going to move us even further towards our goals. So hope that helps.
Very, very good. It really is exciting. Like you said, right? Even in the midst of what could be a chaotic situation or a disrupting situation, it gives you the opportunity for growth when you've got the right mindset, and our leadership here clearly does. So thank you all very much. If there's no further business to come before this committee, we stand adjourned.